Shining bright lotus. Ekai Joel Kreisberg, continuing our exploration or introduction to When the Buddha Needs Therapy by Kogan Keith Martin Smith, the subject of our fall practice period. And Kogan does this interesting thing because he sort of kind of takes this more sort of sociological look of what is spiritual anyway. And so a couple of definitions I think are really important. I mean, many of us have lived through a period where there's this idea that we don't really like religion, but we feel spiritual. We feel like we have some sort of belief in something greater than just the ordinariness and the sort of desperation of the scientific point of view where it's all random. Um, and so there's this sense, and I feel like, a lot of Americans identify as spiritual, but they reject the formal religion. And that's actually a lot because developmentally, religion still clings to a very concrete understanding of God. So that allows us to sort of kind of take a little bit of a look at the way the mind it kind of works. And this is where, at Shining Bright Lotus, we take a cosmopolitan view of Zen, which includes developmental psychology. So one of the things we learn in developmental psychology is that there can be three objects of our attention. First object of our attention is concrete objects. That's an object. It's a cup. Uh, there's a body. You're watching me on your phone or on your computer screen. There's concrete objects, and in a lot of ways, the thing about concretes is we kind of tend to think of them as very real. And so when you start having a debate about whether Jesus was an immaculate conception or whether the Red Sea really did part for the Jews to leave Egypt, you're having a conversation about the concrete interpretation of the religious texts. We, over time, because developmentally concrete's appropriate to a third grader, say, or 3-year-olds in some way or another, we start to agree on our concrete objects. We start to notice that objects have something more subtle. So subtle objects are things like emotions, feelings, thoughts. So I can't touch a thought, right? I can't find the feeling anywhere, but I know that I have it. Okay. And that feeling can show up as sensations in my body in some way or another. So as we develop and when it actually happens in our teen years, we begin to sort of discover the subtle objects of the world, and then we can start to manipulate the subtle objects of the world. And we start to notice the patterns of the subtle objects in the world, and we get all these fabulous intellectual traditions in a lot of ways that allow us to sort of unpack and pack, and I can begin to understand that you have your subtle objects, so you see anger differently than the way I see anger, and then maybe we can start to see universal patterns of what sadness is like. And it's fabulous. And so a lot of our of what we're calling consciousness is our awareness of all this stuff, our awareness of concrete objects, our awareness of subtle objects, our awareness of each other, and our awareness that you may have these subtle objects, and I have these, and these are, they relate to each other. Maybe we can find a shared meaning. So a lot of religions, which is association of remembrance, is when we all agree on the objects. We can all agree that the third temple is the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, or that the Islamic faith has a concrete location where Mecca, where folks go to where, to quote Hamilton, where the room where it happened, so to speak. So we become aware of these things that I like to call that metacognition. So cognition is just thinking, but becoming aware of the way that I think is metacognition. And so we start to do that with subtle objects, and to be able to tell the difference between concrete and subtle is metacognition. In our modern, postmodern Buddhism of cosmopolitan Zen and Mondo Zen, we also use the word awareness a lot, or we use a pure awareness or awakened awareness. And that is something different than a subtle object. That's another object. And so we learn dhyana, we learn to meditate, to concentrate, because as the mind focuses, we start to notice pure awareness, which is always here. But it's not the thoughts and it's not the body. It's in a way, it's the experience of the ever present living soup that everything is arising out of. And it's really hard to put language to it, but you kind of know it when you sense it. And so we use the word pure awareness. We sing it in our Dharani, pure awareness is embodied. It's like we can have a sense of that experience, and it usually requires us to learn to identify it and to find it in some way or another. Now, of course, once we have the experience, we can then start to make subtle metacognitive generalities about it, or we can turn it into concrete objects, which is what happens when we actually ask you to wear certain robes or act in certain ways in order to maximize your ability to be in touch with with pure awareness. And that starts to get kind of messy, and that turns into spiritual identity issues. So I'm going to let Josen talk to you a lot more about this weekend. So if we are preparing you for when the Buddha needs therapy, I invite you to come on October 4th to a preliminary lecture that Josen Jonathan Fielder will give this weekend. The title of the talk, forgive me, I have to look down, is The Way Out is Through. The way out is through. Thank you. Shining bright lotus.